There we are. Right here. So let me go back into the screen share. I'll summarize one more time where we're up to so far. So again, if you find a lost object, you sell it as the halacha requires, and then you keep the money. Then according to Rabbi Akiva, you put the money in a drawer. According to Rabbi Tarfon, you can use the money for your own purposes, but when the guy picks it up, obviously you've got to give it. Rabbah and Rav Yosef have a separate argument. Rabbah says, generally speaking, when you find something, you are a shomechin, I'm an unpaid guardian. Therefore, if it gets lost or stolen, you're not liable. You're only liable for gross negligence. Rabbi Yosef says, no, you're like a paid guardian, and therefore you are liable also if it gets lost or stolen. Fine. Now the Gemara is going to go to town on Rabbi Yosef. Going to give him a pasting, but he's going to come through. It's going to be all right. Okay? So, so we're now going to look at the Gemara. 2 dots right at the foot of Kavches on the base. Ad kan lo pligi, ella. So they do not argue except, the Gemara says, let's turn the page. It's now to 29a. Goodness me, are we not making progress? I'm so proud. Well done us. Ella Kishen is Tamish Bahim. Their argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon about what happens when it gets lost is when you use it. Avol, but if you don't use it, im avdu potul. If it gets lost, everybody agrees you're exempt. Lema, that is to say, to have it shift to Rav Yosef. Because everyone agrees, according to the Mishnah, everybody agrees if you don't use it, you're not liable. That's what they say. Rabbi Akiva says, if you use it, you can't use it, therefore you're not liable if it gets lost. Rabbi Tarfon says you can use it, therefore you are liable when it gets lost. But they both agree, if you don't use it, you're not liable. According to Rabbah, that's sweet. According to Rabbah, if you don't, when you look after something for somebody else, you're an unpaid guardian. You're not liable for loss. You're only liable for pshir, gross negligence. So our Mishnah works very nicely. Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Tarfon, prestigious Tanoim, Mishnah figures, they both agree that if you don't use it, the regular case of a thing that you're looking after, then you're not liable for loss. According to Rabbah, that's perfectly right. You're a shomei hinam. According to Rabbi Yosef, oh my goodness, that's a bomb going off. According to Rabbi Yosef, he says that if you've got a regular case of looking after something and it gets lost, you are liable. You're a shomei socha. You're a paid guardian. So Rabbi Yosef is on the ropes. You with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's a really hard question.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with Rabbi Yosef? So Rabbi Yosef was not a fool. He knew what he was doing. Of course he knew this mission. Of course he did. So the Gemara said, just to refresh your memory, I'm going to tell you what Rabbi Yosef and Rabbah said. We know this already. The Gemara going to go over it for people who don't know. My third line down now on 29a. It was stated, Shem Rabbeinu, when somebody's looking after lost object, Rabbah says, fourth line, that abbreviation, Kaf Shin Ches, is short for Keshem Mechinam, like a Shem Mechinam. He's like a voluntary guardian. He's not liable for loss. Rabbi Yosef says, Keshem Mesacha. He's like a paid guardian. He's liable for loss. So according to Rabbi Yosef, our Mishnah is going against the drift of how things should be. Because our Mishnah says that if you got something, a regular case, where you didn't use the thing, whatever, you just got it, and then you got lost, you're not liable. Everybody agrees that in our Mishnah. According to Rabbah, correct. According to Rabbi Yosef, obey. What are we going to do? So Rabbi Yosef has to, as Alan would put it, Kedaka Vaked is his lovely way. Alan would say you have to have a paradigm shift. You have to shift this whole Mishnah to a different situation. And this is what Rabbi Yosef says. So 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down now. Amalach Rabbi Yosef says, Bigneva Vaveda, when it comes to theft and loss, he says, actually, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon would agree, in any case, that if it gets lost, you are liable. Of course they would. But you're misunderstanding our Mishnah, says Rabbi Tarfon. he pligi, one of the arguments says Rabbi Yosef, but only seem to show. So Rabbi Yosef says our Mishnah is not talking about that middle grade of loss like theft. That if a paid guardian is liable for loss or theft. No, it's talking about a loss in a completely different situation where you borrow something. Now, if you borrow something, you're liable for almost everything that happens to it, except if it dies in the course of its work or breaks in the course of its work. So if you borrow something, let's say you borrow a spade, and it gets struck by lightning and it melts and dissolves. One minute you're standing there with your spade, the next minute, boom, and it's melted and smashed at your feet. Are you liable for that if you borrowed it? Yes, you are. Torah says nothing to talk about. You're liable in any way. Or God forbid, a gunman comes along and does a stick up, says, he points a machine gun and says, "Give me that spade," and the guy gives him the stick. He's got no choice. He's liable for that spade if you borrow it. So Rabbi Yosef says what Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Tarfon argued about in our Mishnah is not a case of loss as in theft, but loss as in a force majeure loss to do with borrowing. So, according to Rabbi Yosef, our Mishnah, when it says im avdu, if it got lost, if the money got lost, it's not talking about where you came home one day and inexplicably it wasn't there, or somebody snuck in the night and stole it. No, we're talking where the money got struck by lightning. A lightning bolt inexplicably went under your front door, into the living room, snaked around the lampshade, down to the straw, into the door of the drawer, and got the money. What? Yeah, but that's what happened. So Rabbi Akiva says, you're not liable. Rabbi Tarfon says you are. Yeah, liable for that. And we can readily understand why this is. Because according to Rabbi Tarfon, if you can use the money, it's like you're borrowing it. When you borrow something, you're liable for anything. According to Rabbi Akiva, you're not liable, you're not borrowing, you're not liable. Dead easy. So Rabbi Yosef has changed the meaning of one word, but it don't make sense. Or does it? But the Gemara says, well, you say that, but no, Rabbi Yosef, you're not done yet. There's more to this. We need to now go back to the Mishnah, because the Mishnah between you and me is somewhat wordy. It's a bit verbose, and that instantly, for anybody who knows anything about Gemara, that raises red flags, hackles up on this. So turn back to the Mishnah if you want, and if you're on the Zoom, I'll turn you back to it now. Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Tarfon, with respect, seems to be going on a bit. So again, if you look at, you see on the previous page, 28b, you've got two Mishnahs, and each one starts with the big letters Mem Taf Nun Yud, and then an abbreviation. We're looking at the second one. It's towards the foot of the page. Just a second. So yeah, so in that Mishnah, then a few lines later it says Gimel Mem, which is Gemara. So we're going to look at 2 lines above the line where it says Gimel Mem, or if you want, 2 lines below where it says Mem Yud.
2 lines below.
Yeah, it's literally the middle line of the Mishnah. So you got towards the end of the line, 3 words before the end of the line, you got Reish Tes. You got that. So this is where Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva have your argument about whether you can use the money. Rabbi Tarfon says Yish Tamish Bahem, you can use them. Now, according to Rabbi Yosef, that means he's a borrower. Are you therefore liable for anything at all? Yes, you are. So therefore, if it gets lost, do you have to pay it back? Yes, you do. I know that. All you need to tell me is you can borrow them, and I know the rest myself. Anybody knows that somebody borrows something is liable. That's easy. So, according to Rabbi Tarfon, why does he need to go on and say, Lefichach im avdu chayv achriyoson? Therefore, if the money gets lost, you're liable for its damage. I know that. It's like a Beethoven symphony. We can't stop. It goes on and on and on. I know that already. That if you borrow something, you're liable for anything. I know that. Rabbi Akiva does the same thing. If you don't lo yishtamesh behen, you can't use it. The fichach, therefore, if it gets lost, you're not liable. I know that. It's obvious if you're talking. So according to Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, for that matter, why are they putting in this extra sentence? Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi, who composed these mishnahs like little works of art, they're like postage stamps. Each one is tiny but very precise. Every detail carries significance and is there to inform and charm. Yeah, what's going on? Why are they both going on in this sort of flabby way? And the Gemara picks up this, not the way of a Mishnah. There's something up. They're hiding something. Or rather, they're putting something in there to inform us that there's something else going on. So what are they telling us? This is the next stage in the Gemara. Okay? This is the tricksy bit. Well, I found it tricky. You weren't, but I did. So it goes like this. You see, according to Rabbah, who says when you look after something, it's like you're looking after a lost object. So when you look after a lost object, you're like a volunteer on Shemechem, you're only liable for the basics. So what we're talking about now is a slightly different case. We're not talking about where you find a goose and you feed it for 3 days and you charge for the feed when the guy picks up. We're not talking about that. We're talking about an unusual situation where you've sold the thing, now you've got money. So until now, I charged for what I gave to the goose. That's what I meant. I don't do it for free. For 3 days, I look after this goose and I feed it. And I'm allowed to keep a record and keep receipts of whatever I pay for its feed, and its medical bills, whatever it was in those 3 days. And then when the guy turns up against his goose, I say, by the way, I spent £2 on goose feed. Pay me back. And he's got to pay me back. Fine. But now, when he's only got money, we're in slightly unknown territory. According to Rabbah, is he still, until now, he could charge for what he did. He could charge for feeding the goose. But now he just got money. Is he still considered a Shemechina, a voluntary god, or is he now a paid guardian? Maybe he's a paid guardian. Because until now, he charged for his work, which is fair for the first 3 days. Now it's all gone quiet. The goose has been taken off. Thank God for that. I got my living room back again. It's all quiet. Clean up the feathers and the mess. But I'm looking after the money in the drawer. And you'll recall, we've been over this a few times. The money in the drawer, it still needs caring for. Fitting the lock, keeping an eye, oiling the lock, make sure the drawer opens and shuts, make sure the blinds are drawn so no one can see my money that I'm looking after for somebody else. Be careful. And then there's a knock at the door, and then there's a poor person asking for money. Too busy looking after this money. Can't go to the door and give him a crust of bread. Actually, that's a nice little earner. Because when I'm looking after this money, I don't have to give him any bread. I'm busy man. It's no small thing to look after money. Okay, so you'll say, stick it in the door. Let's say it's £10 million. 10 million in cash, in 50s. And you got it in a big drawer in your desk. It's a big drawer. It's a big drawer. It's a very big drawer. 10 million. Right? In 50s. And you know, that I'm going to keep a close eye on, because if that gets lost and the guy picks up and says, "Where's my money?" Oy vavoy. So I'm going to keep a close eye. And if someone knocks at the door, you've got to be joking. What? Let somebody in? I got 10 million quid in my. Forget that. Indeed. Indeed. So maybe Rabbah would concede in this case that you're a Shem Masachah. You're a paid guardian, so you are liable for loss. So Rabbi Akiva says you have to make a point here. Right? So according to Rabbah, Rabbi Akiva says you have to make a point. Because you don't know now. Once you've got money in the drawer, is he the regular Shem Echinam? Or maybe the care he has to give for this money upgrades into a Shem Masachah. So Rabbi Akiva has to lay it on with the trial and says, if it gets lost, you're not liable. You're still a shem mechinam. According to Rabbah, that works fine in Rabbi Akiva. According to Rav Yosef, everybody is only ever a shem masacha. When you look after any lost object, you're a shem masacha. Because according to Rav Yosef, anybody look after anything has to take due care. And you could be busy looking after, I don't know, a piano, a picture, a key, I don't know what, anything. And yeah, you're looking after, and therefore when somebody comes to the door, you don't have to give him bread. Therefore, Rabbi Yosef will say, in any case, you're shem masacha. So what's Rabbi Akiva got to tell us? Therefore, if it gets lost, you're not liable. According to Rabbah, it makes sense. Rabbi Akiva says, because you don't have to look after the money, so because you can't spend the money, you're a shem mechinam, will downgrade your responsibility right down. According to Rabbi Yosef, you can't tell me it's a shem masacha or it's not a shem mechinam, because there's never a din of shem masacha. We're still looking after lost objects. Can only ever be a shem masacha according to Rabbi Yosef. So what's Rabbi Akiva's verbose extra statement telling me? There's no way I'd have thought it's a shem mechinam according to Rabbi Yosef. Can only be a shem masacha. Because anything that you encounter, says Rabbi Yosef, occupies your attention. Therefore, you don't have to give money to the poor person. Therefore, that considers your reward. Therefore, you're liable not just for negligence, but also for loss and theft. So, according to Rabbi Yosef, our Mishnah is talking about force majeure, a bolt of lightning, a gumma, whatever it is. And we're saying that, according to Rabbi Akiva, you don't have that din. And so it has to spin out very strongly. If I'm not a shol, I'm not a borrower, what am I? Rabbi Akiva says, guess what? You're a shem masacha. You're a paid guardian. But I know that. That's always the case with any guardian looking after a lost object. So what's Rabbi Akiva telling me? With his extra language. According to Rabbah, it works. Because according to Rabbah, there's a possibility that it's a shem masacha, a possibility it's a shem mechinam. I need to be told what he is. According to Rabbi Yosef, there's only such a thing as a shem masacha with a lost object, as a paid guardian. So, what's he telling me? That's what the Gemara is going to do now. That's the bit that troubled me. Shabbos morning in Plymouth last Shabbos, I woke up early. It was 9 in the morning. Shul started at 10. I sat on the couch in my pajamas. I thought about this moment, and I thought through. I didn't have the Gemara with me, but I thought it through in my head. That's when the penny began to drop. So I'm back in my pajamas.
We finished the silent immediately.
No, I'm sorry. A bit more. I'm really sorry. I'm not there yet. You'll see. Okay. So you're being really good. Thank you. And I'm sorry to have to do this, but I've got to get through this. So we turn the page again. We're back to 29a, and let's look at the Gemara speaking through this next bit.
29a.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. So we're going to start from the fourth line then. Amalach Rav Yosef will say, "Bigneva v'aveda," when it comes to a loss or a theft, to kulem aloi pligid achav. In fact, our Mishnah will say everybody says you're liable for that. Of course you are, because Rav Yosef, anybody who finds any lost object is a shem masacha because it does not give money to the poor. Keep pligi, the last narrow line in the Gemara. Keep pligi, where they're arguing, but only thing to show when there's force majeure, like happens with somebody's borrowed something. Rabbi Tarfon says, the rabbis are allowed to use it. And you're like a borrower. Rabbi Akiva says, you can't use it. Therefore, you're not considered a borrower. You're just a shomer socha, according to Rabbi Yosef. Now, towards the end of the second wide line in the Gemara, if so, now you now know this next point because we've just spoken it through. If so, lefichat on Rabbi Akiva. Why is Rabbi Akiva saying this? Therefore, stuff. If you want to say that's fine, like Rabbah. If you want to say that the Mishnah is talking about a case where it was actually lost or stolen, that's what Rabbi Akiva tells me. Rabbi Akiva says, "Lo yishtamish behind, you can't use it. Lefichach, therefore, im avdu, if it got lost, you're not liable for it. I might have thought, says Rabbi Akiva, happy. I might have thought because it's now money that you're looking after, and not a goose where you charge for the care. Now you're just looking after money. I might have thought the halachah is not Rabbi Yosef because you don't put any effort into it, and or rather, the effort you put into it means that you don't have to give money to the poor guy at the door. Therefore, you count as a shomer socha. I don't know, says Rabbah. Is it shomer socha in this odd case of looking after the money, or like Rabbah would say in Rabbi Akiva, like any other case, is a regular shomer chinam? So Rabbi Akiva has to tell you what he is. He's a shomer chinam. He's a voluntary guardian. So again, let's look at the third wide line in the Gemara. If you want to say that they're arguing about loss and theft, that's what Rabbi Akiva said. That's what he says. Rabbi Akiva says, you can't use it. Therefore, if you got lost, you're not liable for its loss. I might have thought I might have thought he's called a paid guardian, like Rabbi Yosef would say. And therefore he is liable for loss and theft. So Rabbi Akiva has to teach us, therefore, since you told me he can't use it, he's not even a shomer socha. Rabbi Akiva says, I have no truck with all this funny stuff about looking after the money and not going to the door to help the poor man. Pull the other one, says Rabbi Akiva. That's a lot of nonsense. Come on, don't take that. What? Oiling the lock, says Rabbi Akiva. Making sure the drawer opens the drawer. That's a lot of rubbish. You stick it in the drawer and forget about it. Man up and go to the door like a man should give them back to the poor man. He's not a shomer socha. He gets no reward for not giving money to the poor. He's got to give the poor man. Therefore, he's a shomer chinam. That's what I'm telling you, says Rabbi Akiva in this. Therefore, you're not liable. I'm telling you, he's not a shomer socha. He's not a paid guardian. He's a shomer chinam. He's a voluntary guardian. Fine. But I do it like that. But according to Rabbi Yosef, you haven't got that possibility of calling him a shomer chinam. Because Rabbi Yosef said any person, not say any lost object in the history of the universe is a shomer socha. He's a paid guardian. So so what's Rabbi Akiva telling me that I don't know? And once you tell me he's not a borrower, I know he's a shomer socha. Full stop. What's this lefichach malaki? So according to Rabbi Yosef, our Mishnah still doesn't work. I'm nearly there. You think so well, guys. Thank you so much. And I'm recording this so we can look it back over. I'll post it on YouTube and send you a link. Now we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide lines down. Second word. Ella, but if you want to say like Rabbi Yosef, that with loss and theft, everybody agrees you are liable. Keep leaking when they're arguing in our Mishnah, but I seem to show with force majeure, bottom lining. My leficha to Rabbi Akiva. What's this leficha that Rabbi Akiva is saying? I don't need it. Just a second. This is what he should have said. Rabbi Akiva, amen. Rabbi Akiva says, "Lo yish tamish b'hen, don't use them." V'anoya dano, and I know, says the Gemara, "The kim to lo yish tamish b'hen, since you can't use them, lav shal have you're not a borrower, duh. You're not liable if you get lost in a bottom line. That's obvious." So Rabbi Yosef says, "I'm still ahead of you. You just haven't caught up yet. That's your problem." So Rabbi Yosef said, "No, you're wrong. Leficha Rabbi Akiva lamali. Why didn't you Rabbi Akiva?" So he says it's obvious. Mishum leficha Rabbi Tarfon, because Rabbi Tarfon has to do leficha. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, in his poetic genius, when he composed our Mishnah, wanted to have them both have a leficha because it makes it easy to remember. And you're right. Rabbi Akiva's leficha is actually redundant, but it's there because it creates a symmetry. Rabbi Tarfon's leficha. So we said that is why. So Rabbi Akiva's leficha is indeed redundant. Of course, we know if he's not a borrower, he's a paid guardian. And of course, you know, he is liable for loss and theft. And that leficha isn't really necessary. But yeah, it's there because Rabbi Tarfon's. So the Gemara says, well, that's all very well, said the Gemara to Rabbi Yosef, but I'm still not done with you. Round 3. Uleficha to Rabbi Tarfon Lomali. Why, in fact, do I need Uleficha Rabbi Tarfon? The Gemara said, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but now you bring my attention to that. Why does Rabbi Tarfon need to say he is a borrower and therefore he's liable? Of course, if he's a borrower, he's liable. What do you mean? Why do you need to say, therefore, if he got lost, is liable? Of course he is. He's a borrower. You just said he's a borrower, therefore he's liable. Why do you need to tell me that? So Rabbi Yosef said, you've still not got it. But now I'll tell you, he says, thus he says, since the rabbis allow you to use it, it's as if you used it and you are liable. So even if you left it in the drawer, the fact that you had the right to use it means you are liable. That's what Rabbi Tarfon meant with this extra phrase. That's why he laid it on so thick. Therefore, if you got lost, you're liable. He's saying, in any event, you're liable. Even if you didn't touch it, you didn't have an overdraft in the bank, you didn't want to speculate on the stock market, you just put it in the drawer and a bolt of lightning came. Rabbi Tarfon is saying, because you could have used it, you class as a borrower. That's what Rabbi Tarfon said it. That's what Rabbi Akiva said it. So Rabbah works and Rabbi Yosef works, and everybody's fine. Now I say I want to do it one go.
Therefore, we're happy. Therefore.
I'm sorry? Therefore, we're happy. We're happy. Yeah.
Therefore, we're happy.
Now, I have been recording this, so please, I should be able to, get it up on YouTube. If you want to run through it again, you're very welcome. Any questions on any of this while we're here?
Any questions? Can I ask you one simple question? This is not really, you take it out, you change the juxtaposition of where it was. So let me ask you, I end up with this money, this 10 million. I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with this. I know the law that I'm responsible, I'm liable for it, not for me. And I come to the rabbi, I come to you and say, Rabbi, here's 10 million. I don't want anything to do with it. I can't be responsible for it, which I am. Can you keep the money, Rabbi? I'm going to pass over the duty to you, and you being a mensch say, I understand you've got troubles, I'll take it on. So you then take that on. Who's liable? You or me? If it gets lost or if it, something happens.
I think that's another Mishnah. And I don't know the answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, no. Just when you said take it out of its position, if you did give that to me, I would say, well, can someone else look after it, please? I'm out. Whatever the case may be, my house is not secure.
Right. So there's a question, first of all, whether the person who it belongs to would allow the person whom he appointed to look after it to give it to somebody else. And if you gave it to me and then I lost it or drank it or whatever, then the person might say, well, I was happy for you to look after it, but not anybody else. I absolutely don't trust Lister. Oh my goodness, he gave it to him. No, don't. And then he could hold you liable for the loss that I incurred. Or maybe not.
I'm Shomer Secha and I'm paid. And I say, well, I don't want the money. I don't want anything to do with the Shomer Secha. I'm not going to be paid for this. I'm going to transfer it to Rabbi.
So I think you need to pay somebody else to do that. Right. And if you did, and you took adequate care, then maybe you'd be right. But I think it's argued whether a guardian is allowed to hand it over to somebody else. Is it implicit in my handing it over to you that I give you discretion to give it to somebody else on my behalf?
I just think that's changing the transition you did earlier. I was just wondering if that just made a difference to the whole.
Right.
Of this.
So, I think it's argued in the Mishnah.
All
right. There you
go. Thank you.
Carry on with that. So that second person could give to another person.
Yeah. In go forever. Yeah. I mean, as Connie says, 10 million is a big responsibility, but that's what Hashavas Aveda can do to us.
But if somebody broke and the facility is closed, how could he ever pay back that money?
You're right. He'd be bankrupt. So
how could he pay such a colossal amount?
Yeah, you're right. So he's got to do some careful thinking about what to do. I mean, if I look after 10 million in my house, I won't want to leave the house, because it's such a huge sum, or 100 million. It's a staggering amount, and that could happen.
You have that, but then you'd be breaking the rules of Torah. You don't want to leave your house, therefore you can't join a minyan. You can't. It goes into so many different things. It's very interesting.
and it gets.
I must have missed the point, Rabbi. Is that, sorry, I didn't find this to look after for the owner. He asked me if I wanted to look after it. Did I find this? Or
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. So then you can say yes or no at the start. I mean, if you don't fancy looking after 100 million, then how can you do that?
No, but only when you said that if I didn't look if I had the responsibility to the owner,